Steam topics.
Green beans, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, ram, chicken, turkey, you name
it. Christmas dinner, Thanksgiving, get some black eyed peas for New Year's. Okay, anywho's.
I don't know why we can't get ourselves together today.
I don't either. We got the case of the Mondays while we read Monday's Not Coming on a Monday. Okay, go ahead. Hey, Lit Set, it's Jazmine.
Hey, Lit Set, it's Nikea, and this is Black Girl Lit,
the podcast. We're a podcast now, guys.
Where Black girls are lit,
we get lit,
and we read lit.
This is BlackGirlLIt, the podcast.
I always feel so awkward starting the episodes. Hey, y'all. What's up? That's trash.
That was trash.
Okay, anyway, we're here with a bonus episode for our podcast because it's a little backstory here. We actually recorded this episode already on our YouTube BookTube series, and it was the day, I think it was the week that I was moving to Virginia, and Jazmine was already in Charlotte. So, you know, she was working in Greensboro that day. Come to the house. Let's record this last episode. Boom, boom, boom.
Pull up, sis.
So we recorded. I think we spent probably about an hour recording.
Yeah.
I put my memory card in my computer to edit it, and there is no sound.
Mute.
None. I tried Googling, searching, how could I restore sound? I went up to my camera, and I noticed that my microphone was not plugged in the entire time we were recording. So yeah, that's why we're here in this conundrum. So the book that we are going to be discussing today is entitled Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D Jackson. This was my pick from season 1, which got left off. So now y'all get this bonus episode.
Bonus.
So let me tell you a little bit about Tiffany, because we haven't discussed her on the podcast yet. But she is a critically acclaimed author of YA novels. She has received the NAACP Image Award, a Walter Dean Myers Honors Book Award, and the Coretta Scott King New Talent Award. She received her Bachelor's of Arts in Film from Howard University, her Master's of Arts in Media Studies from the New School. She is a Brooklyn native, a lover of naps, cookie dough, and beaches, and is currently residing in the borough that she loves, most likely multitasking. Her novel, Let Me Hear a Rhyme, was released in May of 2019. She grew up in Brooklyn Heights, but also counts places like Fort Greene, Far Rockaway, East New York, and Kingston, Jamaica as her home. She has over a decade of experience in the television industry, working for various networks and media companies. That is Tiffany D Jackson. I'm obsessed with her.
Yeah, you are.
We read Allegedly, which was her first novel, and then we read Monday's Not Coming. I'm obsessed, and I want to read her other book.
What's her
I may not
book?
make Jazmine. Let Me Hear a Rhyme. Oh, and she also has a book called Grown coming out this year in 2020.
Okay. I mean, you don't have to force me to read Tiffany. I appreciate Tiffany's novels, so it's okay if we read Tiffany again. I won't hate you completely.
And now we are on to the segment where Jazmine flourishes and thrives. She is going to synopsisize Monday's Not Coming.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Come along with me on this journey as I synopsisize Monday's Not Coming by Tiffany D Jackson. The story of Monday's Not Coming is about a girl named Monday Charles who disappears. And the only person who seems to notice that Monday is gone is her best friend, Claudia. So Claudia realizes this when they return back to school after summer vacation, that when Monday doesn't show up for the second, third, fourth day of school, that, hey, something's wrong here. And she kind of goes on this journey to figure out what happened to Monday. Where is Monday? How come no one seems to care that Monday's gone? And tries to dig deeper into her friend's disappearance and find out what happened to her best friend. So that is a very, very, very high level view of Monday's Not Coming. As Nikea and I talk through this episode, we'll dive a little bit more deeper into this book. But yeah, that's the high level view. Monday's missing. So it's like What Happened to Monday, the Netflix movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like What Happened to Monday.
Right.
You know?
I thought it was Sunday, but...
No, Monday is the movie.
Really? Oh, I thought it was Sunday. One of the days of the week. Well, thank you, Jazz, for that synopsis.
You're welcome.
Amazing. I was wondering what you're going to do because, it's been a while
Eh,
since we read this book.
Look, look, okay. At least I remember that part. And luckily,
Yeah.
and I'll just to give you guys some little background. We kind of reread the book to
Hmm.
do this review. So
Re-listen.
we listened to it.
Well, but when we first read the book, I didn't finish reading it. Like, I finished listening to it on audiobook. Like, I was at
Yes.
Chipotle, like, opening the store, and I had my headphones in. So I had the audiobook on like 2 times the speed, listening to it, trying to read the end. And I still
I
didn't finish it.
remember
And
that.
Jazz had to like wrap it up for me. So like I officially have read the book. Well, we did our book hack, which is audiobook listening to refresh our memories. But
Hashtag book
yeah,
hack.
right. Had to. All right. All right, y'all. Now we're going to give you all our reactions to the novel. I cannot remember my first reactions to reading it, like just fresh, but I do remember like it was long. The book itself, the physical book, is very long, very heavily detailed, sometimes like a little too much. So when I finished reading the audiobook, I did read people's reviews of the book, and some people were like there were some unnecessary details that like you really didn't need, and it kind of just drug the story on. There's this TED Talk. I do not want to say her name wrong, but she was featured on Beyonce's song Flawless, right? I'll put it in the show notes. But she did a TED Talk about the dangers of like a single story. So only knowing one side and one perspective. And I feel like this story kind of plays into that because we only get to see Claudia's perspective in this story. It's told from her point of view, which I thought it would be kind of cool if we got some different perspectives, or maybe if it was told from Monday's point of view, even though Monday's not technically like in the novel and we get flashbacks of her. I thought it'd be cool. And maybe just not Monday's, but just multiple perspectives. But I think Tiffany does that because she did that in Allegedly. That gets you to like kind of trust the narrator because that's the only perspective that you get. So you think, okay, what they're saying has to be true. You have to be able to trust them. But then as stuff is revealed in the story, you're kind of like, should I trust them all the way? Claudia is codependent on Monday. And it's to a point of like obsession, to a point where I was thinking, is she in love with Monday? Like, I wasn't quite sure. And also, I thought of this when I listened to it the second time. Everybody in the book, they mentioned that Monday likes Mondays. And I thought that was interesting because most people hate Mondays. But if you think about it, that's the start of a new work week or a school week or whatever. And Mondays are kind of like a fresh start. And especially for Monday in the novel, once you learn like what's going on in her life, you understand why she appreciates Mondays, not just because it's her name. I think that's all my reactions. I think some other stuff goes into like major scenes and topics and all that jazz. But yeah, and also one thing, the timeline was so confusing.
Oh,
Because
super
there's
confusing.
like, so you have sections that are titled like months. So you have like September, October, November, December, and then you have sections that are entitled the before. Then you have the after, and then 1 year before the before, and 1 year before the after. After, I'm just like, bruh, can you just put years in here? So yeah, sorry. Okay, go ahead, Jess.
No, that's a huge piece because it throws you off as you're reading the book or even listening to it makes it a little bit easier to comprehend. And I think also for me, the reason why listening to it made it easier to comprehend is because we had already read it. So I knew kind of what to expect. But still, it is super confusing, the timeline. Like you said, years would have been helpful. The call out that you made about it being told from just Claudia's perspective, I think it's very interesting. And I think, like you said, we have to trust what Claudia's saying, so this has to be the truth. But then also, I think it also allows us to kind of like, as the reader, speculate a little bit more, and kind of like you can go on the journey a little bit more with her, and you're trying to figure out what's going on too. Because I think, as I would have liked to have the story told from Monday's perspective too, I think it was good that it wasn't, because we were kind of guessing along the way too, and trying to figure things out. And it made it more of a mystery. But for my own reactions, I called out about how Claudia seems extremely possessive of Monday, like bordering on obsessive. Like, I think she was in love with her. We can talk about that later and other things. I do think that she was in love with her. And then I think also when you get into the book, you see that she's really dependent on her, and just from an educational standpoint of her, like being able to help her read and write essentially. I also put, and this is an old note because I found one of my old notes, but and it kind of reminded me too. But I said that so when we read This Side of Home and the twins' friend Essence who lived across the street, their mama was low key trash. I was like, okay, Monday's mama reminds me of that low key, so trash mama, and then we find out her mama is low key trash. So
Yeah.
not even low key, she hockey trash. She hockey trash.
We got a lot of shitty mamas in these books we've
What
been
do
reading.
I was thinking that we keep having super shitty mama situations.
Right. Like,
What are we? Where are characters going through? Shitty
I
mama
know.
essential. But yeah. So what else for my reactions? Everything else, like you said, I will be in major scenes and themes and topics segment. Let's go into our major scenes and topics.
Please, let's. Okay, so some major topics that were addressed in the novel that I think were mental health issues.
Oh, most definitely.
The school system and special needs and learning disabilities, and I guess the lack thereof of staffing and funding and support for students and families who have these needs. And I didn't know how to put this in words, but like the fact that Monday was missing and the school didn't really do anything about it. Like when your child doesn't go to school, that's called truant. Like the parent's supposed to like go to court. They could possibly go to jail when their child doesn't go to school. So there was just a lack of responsibility on the educators and the school system's part. Abusive parents, lack of care for the Black women and girls. And we know that's a current issue. There are a lot of Black women and girls missing, but nobody is talking about that in the media. They rather focus on other crazy things, and they don't care about the Black woman, basically. I said it. Also, and the last major topic was gentrification. And I think that plays a role in what is going on with Monday's family and even in her community. I forgot the name of the community, but basically it's like what people would call the hood or the projects, and it's on the water. And this is actually going on in my hometown in New Bern, North Carolina. There's these apartments or public housing, which people call the project. They're on the water. So, essentially, initially they put all the Black people in this one spot. But now that they see it's, waterfront property, on for the rich white people, there was a flood that happened. So a lot of people had to move out of those homes. So now I'm sure the city wants to tear those down and turn it into like, upscale type community and, displace all of those Black families. And that's what's going on in Monday's book. It's not taking place in North Carolina. It takes place in DC, but it's on the water. But they're pushing all of the families who were there before, they're pushing them out, and they just all, they all happen to be Black. And that's gentrification in a nutshell.
Yes, most definitely. And that's, I hate to say it, but that's most likely what's going to happen. Yeah. I've even seen a lot of that living in Charlotte and seeing like, oh, these super nice houses in hood neighborhoods. And it's because they're trying to gentrify it. They're trying to get a couple people, investors to move in, and they're going to buy everybody out, and then they're going to make it super unaffordable. There's a housing crisis or a housing shortage, affordable housing shortage, in Charlotte, but they're building apartment complexes everywhere. It's because it's not affordable for anybody. But that's,
I can't wait until I can become an investor, and I'm gonna buy up all this stuff, and I'm gonna put my people in it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Did you have any? It's a fan brush.
Okay.
It works. You got any major topics?
My topics were just the same as you. Definitely issues of race, mental illness, shitty mamas, and also low-key kind of shitty siblings, like talking about April a little bit, which unfortunately for her, I think April was just a product of her environment and just like her own dealing with her own abuse and stuff. But I feel like she could have done a little bit more than what she did for her siblings. And we could dive into that a little bit more. Claudia having episodes is why the timeline's probably not linear either.
Bruh, it's because it's from her perspective, so we're in her shoes.
We're in her shoes, and she doesn't know what time she's in because she keeps having episodes. So that's why the timeline's not linear. God almighty. Look here, right, Tiffany. There. If you don't know how to write a damn book.
God no.
God almighty.
That was good. That makes sense.
It makes sense.
Okay, major scenes. Did notice that Michael, which is Claudia's friend from church, who's been hanging out with her, he got the date wrong in front of Claudia. And this was during one of her episodes. Like they were at the library and he had wrote the year down or whatever. And she was like, oh, you wrote the year wrong. And this is,
Ah.
so they're all like trying to protect her from knowing what's going on, because Claudia is just having episodes where she can't remember like what the timeline is and what's really going on in her life and what's already happened and what hasn't happened. And so also her dance team is protecting her because she goes into dancing. She's in one level group, and then the instructor decides to move her up, and she's like, oh, this is a first, because she's in 8th grade and she's moving up with the high schoolers, when in all actuality she's the same age as them, but Claudia doesn't realize it because she's having these, blackout episodes.
So before you go any deeper, quick question on that. Do you feel like they should have done that? Do you feel like it was actually benefiting Claudia by shielding her from what was actually going on? Like they should have just, I personally feel like they should have just, hey, tough conversation. This is what it is. And allow her to deal and process with that instead of shielding her and just creating this false reality for her.
Yeah, I think her parents should have put her in therapy after everything initially happened. As soon as they found out what happened to Monday, I think they should have put her in therapy. But I feel like this has been going on for like 2 years. You're letting your daughter have episodes where she forgets things for 2 years. Mm-hmm. Like, no way. Like, how hard is it to get the whole, like, you have all these people faking and fronting around your daughter. Like, she's supposed to be in high school, but she's still in middle school and she doesn't realize it. And you think that's okay? I think that just makes it even worse for her, because now she has to like catch up physically, mentally, emotionally, when she could be going to therapy and dealing with all that at the same time. But I think that plays into, in the Black community, we don't like to go to therapy. We don't like to have our business out in the streets, which in therapy, that's not out in the streets. You are trying to heal, you know what I'm saying? And they didn't give her the opportunity to heal initially from this trauma. So I think they were totally wrong for that.
Okay. I agree. I just feel like, I don't know, they're in the long run, it's not going to benefit her in any form or fashion. Like she's not going to be able to be a truly functioning adult based on how they're treating her now.
Right. And they're pushing back her timeline to heal, when instead of healing in, a certain amount of years or months or whatever, working on it, she couldn't even start working on it until they, divulged all the information to her. Yeah. I think another major scene is when they find out the books that Monday was reading, where she was leaving breadcrumbs. They kept saying, her mom always told her, always leave breadcrumbs so people know where you are and stuff like that. But 3 of the books, I've never read any of these, but the book she was reading was Perks of Being a Wallflower, Flowers in the Attic, and Push. And Monday was reading these books because they thought that like the government could see what books you were reading when you checked them out. So she was hoping that somebody could see what she was reading and get a clue on what was happening in her life, because Push was made into a movie. But that's about a young girl who was abused by her father sexually. Flowers in the Attic is about a group of children who are kept in the attic by their grandmother. And
with some incest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of craziness. I want to read these books though. And then Perks of Being a Wildflower is about, I just read the book synopsis, but it's about a young boy who is dealing with some teenage angst and drama and some personal family issues. And you get to read like his perspective from his journal or whatever. When books mention other books in their story, it's called intertextuality.
Ooh.
So gotta use my degree, paid a lot of money for it. But I like when books references other books, and I feel like it would benefit me to like read some of these, especially Flowers in the Attic, because that's one that Monday checked out a lot. So I would like to read that book and kind of get a view into Monday's psyche. Oh, and another major thing is that Claudia refers to everybody as colors, and like she explains their colors and stuff like that. So she is, let's see, she relates things to colors. Her father even buys her coloring books because he says that's therapeutic for her. And this is before, everything's revealed and she actually starts going to therapy. So they use coloring as a form of therapy for her. So Monday is red, crisp, striped, vivid. Mrs. Charles is yellow. And Claudia mentions that yellow is bright, but it can also be contaminated, because you know how when a banana turns yellow, or like when you highlight something and the tip of the highlighter becomes black, it's tarnished. Yeah, see, I
Mhm.
was paying attention this time. She says that her mother is pink. I didn't write down details about that one. And then April, which is Monday's sister, is gold. Her dad, I can't remember if it was her dad or if it was Michael, but either one of them, one was green and one was brown. And she said they represent like a tree for her and they're her support. Like her dad was like I think her dad was like hunter green and he represent like her support for the tree and he was a
Yeah.
tree, all this stuff. Yeah, really deep, Claudia, really deep. And then she represented herself as white, which is pure and innocent. And I would also like to say, in this sense, naive.
Yes, most
Very,
definitely naive.
very naive. Yeah, so I just like how the color played into that because she's really into coloring, drawing, into not drawing, but just coloring and like nail polish. Like she can tell the difference between colors.
So for me, major seed obviously was the ending or the discovery of what happened to Monday. Also, I think when we discover, kind of going back to like the education system, and it may not be a major scene, but like how they failed both Monday and Claudia. Like
Mm-hmm.
Monday was obviously failed because she disappeared and no one at the school seemed to care. No one seemed to care that she wasn't enrolled this year. No one seemed to do any kind of follow up. And I'm not an educator. You're obviously an educator, so you have more insight into this. But I just feel like there's way more people who should have noticed or should have said something within that school system about her not being at school or not being enrolled or not doing anything, or not
Yeah,
even just her but her other siblings.
yeah,
Like there were some, they were failed there. And then also Claudia was failed from an educational standpoint where they didn't pick up on her disability, like her dyslexia
right,
and her disability within education, her learning disability, and they just kind of let her coast through and no one said anything until it was discovered after Monday was gone. But I feel
right,
like had her teachers actually been paying attention, they wouldn't have noticed. But then also this kind of goes back into like a race thing where the schools that are in Black communities are generally overpopulated. Teachers have way more students than they can handle or can actually devote the necessary attention to. So that
mm-hmm.
kind of goes into that. And I don't know, I just feel like they were failed there.
Yeah,
Also kind of going to back to like Monday's sister and the family dynamic and the traumas that were happening. So Monday had an older sister named April who was
she was known as
less,
a hoe,
she
a
was a
slut,
hub, a
a
slut.
thought, if you
She
will.
was less than helpful in not Monday's, and Claudia's endeavors to discover what happened to Monday. And that's because of her dealing with her own personal traumas. And it's crazy. It's sad how those things kind of trickle down because you think, oh, you're supposed to be your brother, your sister's keeper. But sometimes you can't keep other people when you're not even whole yourself and you're trying to deal with all this stuff. And it's a
Come
lot.
on, preach, that was good. Y'all, she said you can't keep other people when you're not even whole yourself. Think on
Right.
that.
Like on that. Yeah. So, and I just feel like, so for me, I was really conflicted with April because I felt like you should have done more, you should have done more, you should have done more. But at the same time, you're being abused yourself and you are
Mm-hmm.
being failed just as much as your siblings are. So,
Yeah.
obviously, there's a lot of major scenes and I don't want to go too much into it because we don't want to give too many spoilers. But I just feel like this book is just a story of how Black women, Black children are constantly being failed by people in their lives, whether it's family members, the system, education, and then also from a media bias, like how everyone just assumed once the media did get involved, it was like, everyone's like, oh, Monday's mom is, dang it, how can I do this when I'm not able to see? But so never mind, forget that. But anywho, there's just media bias about the community that they live in and just the things going on. And it's just that no one cared. It's just a
Yeah.
story of how no one cared enough to check in on
Yeah.
either one of them. And honestly, even now, kind of going after the culmination of everything that happens, and it seems like I know Claudia's family cares about her, but the fact that they have not put that child in proper therapy and they're just kind of calling her through this, it shows that they really truly don't care about her
Yeah.
future. They just want to do it as easy as possible and kind of want to keep her in this little bubble, but that's not going to help her long term.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. This story was a lot to read. It was a lot. Definitely did not go how I was expecting it to go. Even listening to it, rereading it again, still was not like what
Yeah.
I was expecting. It's a
Right.
lot. It's a heavy book.
Yeah.
But it's to be YA, it's heavy.
And I was going to go back to your point where you were talking about the education system, about how it failed Claudia. Also, there's also a stigma on students or kids who like need to get pulled out or they need to go to special needs services or things like that because Claudia would take the long way around the building just to go to her resources that or I forgot what it was called, but go to her resource center where she could get extra help or whatever. And I feel like we have to stop putting stigmas on people and children when they have, special needs services. I was lucky. I was not lucky, but in school, I didn't have to get pulled out for extra help, but I got pulled out, to for like gifted and talented. And, there's stigmas on both sides where people who need extra help to meet, the neurotypical standards. And then there's people who need extra help who are exceeding the neurotypical standards. So we have to take away the stigma that, oh, you're special just because you get pulled out of class, or you're stupid because you get pulled out of class. We have to realize that fair doesn't always mean equal. It's all about equity. People are getting what they need to meet the same point. So I've seen this picture on social media before where there's 3 people standing on a fence, and they're all different heights. So they all have the same box, but all of them cannot see over the fence. So then the other picture next to it says, okay, this is equity. So the shorter person has 2 boxes, the second shortest person has 1, and the tallest person doesn't have a box because they don't need it. So we have to take away those stigmas of saying that everything has to be equal in order to be fair. No, it's not about equality. It's about equity.
Well, that's good. Not about equality. It's about equity.
Yeah.
Yes, that's deep.
That's my little education, my educator coming out. All right. Now, y'all, we ain't got no sips. So on to our next segment.
Thank you. Because you trying to lay around in that area and be be comfortable in the sips. Girl, be uncomfortable.
Y'all know what sips is. Just if you want to do it, do it. If you don't, no, it's cool. Whatever. Okay. So our next segment, the part you have all been waiting for. We're going to rate that book.
Rate it.
We're gonna rate this book now, y'all.
We're gonna rate it.
So I don't remember my original rating.
I don't either.
But okay, we're gonna start with this newness. So my rating for this book, I am going to give it a pause for dramatic effect. I'm gonna give it a lit.
Okay.
I'm gonna give it a lit.
Okay.
The only issues. Okay. I was gonna give it like a tipsy and a half, but I'm gonna go ahead and give it a lit because I really enjoyed this book. The only thing about it, the only negatives I have about it is like the length and like the super details of it that we didn't need, and also just like the confusing timeline. I think this is a book that you have to read twice or listen to twice to like fully piece everything together. I think you need to read it one time for enjoyment, and then the second time, and then the second time you read it, you can kind of put all the puzzle pieces together. But I love Tiffany, and she gives me the drama in the stories, so I'm gonna give it a lit.
Okay.
It's been a while since I gave a book a lit, I feel like.
Okay, sis. Okay.
Y'all, she's saying okay like that because she don't agree with me. But it's okay. I'm not.
No,
I'm good.
I'm
matured. No more what was the reason?
Lies. You sit on a throne of lies. No, so for my rating, I'm gonna give it a lit. I am gonna give it a lit. When I first read it, I think okay, sis. Okay. So when I first read it, I think I may have given it a tipsy lit. And I do think it teeters a little bit on the tipsy lit side. But I just think from a content perspective, from a story perspective of the twists and turns and understanding. And I think now that I kind of made that point about why the timeline's not linear, I feel like for me giving that some understanding, I don't know if that's really what she did and that was her intention, and that just could be how I perceived it. But under my perception of that, I'm gonna give it a lit based on that. I do agree that the book was super long. Even if you listen to the audio book, I think it's like 10 hours technically from the audiobook. So, if you're the type of person that you're driving 10 hours and you want to listen to an audiobook straight, go ahead. But that's a long time to be listening to a book. So it's really long. And even though I think I have a better understanding of the timeline thing, the timeline was still kind of weird how it was done. But I'll give it a lit. It's a different book. It has some topics that need to be discussed and talked about. And I think that even though it's a YA book, I definitely think adults should read it. Most
Jazz
definitely.
be hating on
I
YA.
don't
Like,
hate
how
on the YA.
much?
I like YA. I read Hunger Games, all of the books. That's YA.
But when you talk about why you gotta put that little caveat, even though it's YA,
Because
it's just YA is just a title, it's just who the book is marketed to. It doesn't mean it's restricted to young
look, I
adults.
like
It's
my
just
books that
the
have a bunch of
market.
fucking in it, so I'm not gonna get that in YA.
All right. All right, y'all. That is all we have for today's episode. We hope you enjoyed this bonus, because we're taking a little break right now from actually reading. Our eyeballs hurt. So we just got to take a little break. But we'll be back with season 3. And our premiere is going to be on March 4th. And we are starting the season off with the book entitled Black Girls Must Die Exhausted by Jane Allen. And this is Jazz's pick. And then the next novel is going to be my pick, which is called Thick and Other Essays by Tracy McMillan Cottom. All right, so be ready for our season premiere on March 4th. And be sure to engage with us on Instagram at BlackGirlLIt_, or you can just email at BlackGirlLItyt@gmail.com. And as always, stay Black Girl Lit.
Make sure y'all stay Black Girl Lit out in them streets, okay? Your goal for 2020 is to stay Black Girl Lit, okay? This is what your main focus is, to stay Black Girl Lit.
I love how every time she says that, she got to get up on the mic.
Because I just want people to know, okay? I got to get all up in them ears and your earwaves and your speakers to let you know that that's your main focus and goal, is to stay Black Girl Lit on them streets.
All right, y'all. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.
That's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. Leave us a 5-star rating and a top-notch review to get us to the top review page on iTunes. And be sure to follow us and listen on SoundCloud.